If you want to become an indie game developer, you will need to learn many skills, but the single most important skill you want to master is the ability to finish games. In this video, I will first go through some of the most common pitfalls why some indies never finish a single game. Then I will talk about why exactly finishing your game projects is so important, and finally, I will share some of my tips on how to improve your chances of finishing projects. Hi, my name is Auro. I'm a full-time indie game developer and I'm the creator of a game called Mortal Glory. On top of that, I also make these weekly YouTube videos sharing my experiences to help you on your own game dev journey. Let's dive into the topic by first going through why finishing is so hard. I mean, I can think of many reasons why so many indies struggle with this, and it seems that the closer you get to finishing your game, the more pitfalls there actually are for not finishing. And it makes sense to me. When you first start working on your game, you are in the honeymoon phase. You got all these cool ideas in your head and there are endless possibilities where the game could go. The game doesn't yet exist in the physical world, so it can live in a happy wonderland world within your mind. At this point, your game is in its ideal form without any faults. But as you keep developing the game, it will start taking its form in the physical world, and so it will also need to start following the rules of the physical world. Maybe some feature is impossible to get working properly. Maybe you're not able to afford the kind of art you wanted, or maybe the gameplay loop just isn't as fun as you thought it would be. Now, your game is no longer in its ideal form like you pictured it. It has faults. This is inevitable. You might even have expected it, but it can still feel very disappointing and eat away your motivation. At the same time, you have these other cool ideas running around in your head. They are new and exciting, and best of all, they do not have any faults. They are not burdened by a faulty save system, subpar graphics, or a messy project folder. So it is very normal that you will be tempted by these new and exciting ideas. But you must not give in to the temptation, as those ideas too will at some point have to take their form in reality and then be burdened with the faults that come with it. As you can probably see, this is a vicious cycle. In the worst case scenario, you will give in to the temptation every time, and in return, you will never finish a game. It doesn't help at all that finishing a game is boring. In the beginning, it is exciting when you are implementing all the big features and you are making great noticeable progress every day. But at the end, you are left with fixing persistent bugs, creating endless UI buttons, and generally doing all sorts of small fine-tuning. There is no amount of motivation that will make this part fun. Luckily, it's just the last 10%. Except that the last 10% is more like 30% and can feel like 90%. Since the game is getting closer to its final state, it has nothing new to offer to you, no surprises that would excite you. Hey, that rhymes. After all, you know how every feature works. You know which seemingly elegant features are just cherry-rigged together, and you know how the AI creates an illusion of complex thought by cheating at every possible moment. Because of all this, you might feel like your game is dull and not that much fun to play. At least I experienced something like this. When I was about to release Mortal Glory, I didn't know if it would be actually fun to play. At that point, I had playtested and looked at my own game so much that I couldn't enjoy it as a normal game. I could only see the structures and props behind the game, not the actual game like the player would experience it. As you get closer and closer to finishing, you might also start dreading something unpleasant. Maybe you have been putting off marketing so far and the irrational part of your brain keeps telling you to ditch the game just so you can avoid marketing. Or maybe you're afraid that your game is not good enough. Afraid that when you release it, the players will make fun of it and the other devs will think less of you. I could keep coming up with more excuses why someone might want to jump to a new project instead of finishing their current game. But I think I have listed enough of them. Let's now talk about why finishing your game is so important and why you should ignore all of these excuses and keep pushing until your game is done. Let's start with the most obvious reason for finishing: money. While there are ways to monetize games before they are done, most games will only start generating income when they are finished and released to the public. If you are a hobbyist, money might not concern you, and that is okay. But I think most indie game developers dream of doing game development as their main job. You need money to make that dream a reality, so you will want to start generating income from games as soon as you can. If you don't finish a game, you lose a potential income source and you are delaying turning that dream into a reality. You might be thinking that your game wouldn't sell anyway, and that is a possibility. It's probably even likely if you are thinking that. But you never know for sure, and I think it's definitely worth finding out by actually releasing the game. When you finish a game, you can also proudly showcase it in your portfolio if you're out looking for jobs. It will indicate that you can get things done and that you can actually push things to the finish line. When I read about indies abandoning their projects, I usually see them mentioned how it was a great learning experience and how they can now improve things with their next project. I feel like I am calling out half of the aspiring indie devs here, but I feel like that is a lacking rationalization. I mean, it is very likely true. You learned a lot and now you can improve, but if you chose to finish your game, you could have learned so much more. Making games as an indie is not just about how well you can design and code systems. Especially if you are making games alone, you will need a wide array of skills. And if you don't ever finish your games, you will completely miss out on valuable lessons. By finishing and releasing your game, you will gain experience on marketing your game, experience on setting up a store page for your game, experience on optimizing that store page, experience on player communication, experience on receiving critique, both just and unjust. And if you put a price tag on your game, you will also gain experience on game monetization, experience on how to handle the business side, experience on how to handle taxes, and so on. If you don't release your game, you skip on all this experience and a huge learning opportunity. Most of these things I mentioned are not really that hard, but they are still skills you will get better at. You want experience on them as soon as possible, so you can be more confident with your ability to publish and release games. After this rant, it's good to add a quick disclaimer that I'm sure there are situations where completely abandoning a project is 100% the right move. But I think those situations where you really can't salvage anything releasable out of the project are rare. Or at least I think they should be. You see it quite often with AAA studios for various reasons, but I don't think indies can afford wasting their time and money like that. Of course, I only have one game under my belt, so it could be my inexperience talking. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with me. As a final selling point for finishing, I'll mention closure. After you finish and release a game, you are closing one chapter in the book. You won't have to play the guessing game in your mind what could and might have happened if you finish the game. Instead, you will see it through and find out the answers. Maybe it could sort of be thought as your game, your baby, growing into an adult and moving away from home. You are releasing the game into the world and now other people will be able to interact with the game. It can be scary doing so, giving up some of your control, but it's a necessary part of life. I don't actually know if that analogy made any sense, but yeah, release your babies out into the world. And finally, let's quickly go through some tips that I think will help you in finishing your game. To start, choose a small game idea rather than a big one. With big ideas, there's always a bigger likelihood of never finishing your game for whatever reason. I would rather start with a small idea and then add on top of it, rather than start with a big idea, not be able to add anything new to it, and then later on also likely have to go through great effort to cut down features. Speaking of cutting down features, don't be afraid to do it. If something is not essential to your game, It can often be a good idea to cut it if you are able to finish your game much faster that way. This is, of course, situational and depends on the feature, but generally I think you should be more afraid of adding new things rather than cutting them. It's also a good idea to set a deadline for yourself, either a specific date or when your game is in a specific state with specific features. Setting deadlines can be difficult and sometimes you will need to break them, but it's good to at least practice setting them. This will force you to focus on what is essential to your game and not get stuck endlessly refining things. If you have bit more than you can chew and you feel like you might never finish your game, try to break it into parts and think if you could salvage at least a part of it and turn it into a smaller game. It's always better to have a small, okay-ish game that you can finish rather than a gigantic bestseller that you will never finish, unless of course you have already collected the money. If you are feeling like your game is dull and not worth continuing, get feedback from other people also to try and get an idea if it's just you getting bored with the idea or if there are actual issues with the idea. Ideally, you want feedback from people who you don't know but who are fans of the genre. Feedback from people close to you can often be too nice and create too optimistic expectations. Likewise, feedback from people who are not fans of the genre is feedback from people who are not in your target group, so the feedback is less relevant. And finally, really commit to finishing your game. Vow to yourself that you will see the project to the end and release the game, no matter what. This is a simple tip, but it will require tremendous willpower from you. The hardest part will be to resist temptations that lead you away from the project, most notably new game ideas. But as long as you stay strong and true to your commitment, you can proudly reap all the benefits when you have a finished game in your hands. But hey, that's all I have for this video. If you found this helpful, I would really appreciate it if you left a like on the video. Alright, thanks for watching and see you in the next one.